The FIFA rule that gives Isak leverage over Newcastle. Alright, let's see what this is about. This is a story from Gabriel Marcotti, and this is from ESPN. Let's see. Sorry, throat's feeling weird. But yeah, you have probably heard of the Alexander Isak saga. Newcastle's standout forward has been holding out, presumably in order to force a move. After his club turned down a 110 million transfer bid from Liverpool. Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, Newcastle, say what you will about like current Newcastle and everything. They have some balls. They have some serious balls. I mean, or maybe they're just really dumb. I don't know. Turning down an offer like that, I don't know. You're either really dumb or really smart. But anyway, you may be less familiar with the Lassana Diarra verdict and the interim changes to something called Article 17 of FIFA's regulations on the transfer and status of players. The Lassana Diarra verdict is a court case I talked about, I think, a couple streams back. Sure. Basically, what it is he said. Basically, what this case was about is that this player claimed that FIFA was like unfairly restricting his ability to move between job to job, and that's technically illegal. And so he sued FIFA, and he won. And so I guess what they're gonna say is that like this, I guess is the same idea that they're restricting Isak's ability to change jobs, and that's illegal. I don't know. We'll read more about it. We'll get into it. All right. But maybe you should be familiar with them, because the fact is they potentially loom very large in the Isak case and could determine his future. Quick disclaimer, I have no idea if Isak or his representatives have knowledge of Article 17 and the power it gives them, but I suspect they do. I mean, yeah. I mean, this is kind of a big thing. I feel like any good lawyer would probably be aware of this. I feel like, but that's just me. All right. Because it helps explain why, thus far, they have been so aggressive in trying to engineer a move out of the club. Situations like this are about leverage. In Newcastle's favor is the fact that Isak is under contract until 2028, which means if he's going to transfer to another club, they get to negotiate a fee. And apparently 110 million isn't enough. So yeah, someone's going to have to put in like a seriously high bid if they want him. Once the transfer window shuts on September 1st, Isak will have little choice. Either play for Newcastle or sit it out for 4 months, which is never a good option for a player, especially with a World Cup in the USA, Mexico, and Canada next summer. It's ESPN, so they gotta mention that the World Cup is being hosted in the US, Mexico, and Canada next summer. Yeah. Let's see. In Isak's favor is the fact that while they can make him stay, train, and even play, an unhappy player will generally be less productive. The less productive he is, the more his transfer value will diminish. Of course, if Isak's productivity diminishes, so too will the wages he can command and the clubs he can attract. So as leverage goes, it's kinda meh. I mean, I don't know. I feel like refusing to like train or play well, has worked out well for some players in the past. But then again, Alexander Isak might not exactly be those players. So yeah, whatever. All right. Enter Article 17. It took effect 20 years ago when FIFA, under pressure from the European Commission, who believed the transfer system restricted the freedom of players to change jobs like ordinary people can, came up with a mechanism to allow them to effectively walk out on clubs. They had to fulfill certain criteria. and a certain amount of compensation had to be paid. The problem was, while there were a few high-profile cases, the conditions were so restrictive and the amount of compensation to be paid so uncertain that very few successfully invoked Article 17. Hold on. Last October's Diarra judgment forced FIFA to rewrite their rules in double quick time. The current statutes are still too restrictive, according to FIFPro. FIFPro is the FIFA Players Union, so yeah, they represent the players. So of course they would still feel that the that the statutes are still too restrictive, but you know that's their side. All right. The World Players Union. Yeah, the World Players Union. I hate when I explain something. I hate when I explain something and then the article explains it right after, because it's like, yeah, I should have just kept reading. I wasted everyone's time. Crap. But they're definitely more player friendly than the previous ones. For a start, several significant hurdles have been removed. Previously, FIFA could withhold the player's transfer certificate until the matter was resolved. No more. The club who signed an Article 17 player had to prove that they didn't collude with him to cause the breach of contract. That's gone too. Now the burden of proof rests with the club that loses the player. Alright, so they essentially, loosened the restrictions on, the player, and so now, a lot of the burden of proof falls on the club. The club has to prove, that the player, didn't collude with the other club in some way. Alright. Crucially, Isak is well positioned to take advantage of this and become a free agent in less than 12 months, with whatever new club he signs for having to pay as little as half of the 110 million Newcastle turned down. Holy shit. Oh, wow. So Newcastle, in their infinite wisdom, gave up and turned down $110 million and could end up getting half of that for Isak. I mean, they are truly playing 4D chess right now. Really. Oh, crap. Anyway. Alright. It's not known if Isak... alright. That's a line I already read. Alright. Article 17 can only be invoked within 15 days of the final match of the season. Early June 2026 at the latest, and only by players who have had a full 3 years under contract at the club. What the? Full 3 years under contract at the club. 2 if they're 28, which Isak isn't. He's only 25. Once that happens, it is considered a unilateral breach of contract by Isak, which means he's free to sign with any other club as soon as the market reopens on July 1st. Alright, so what was it? So he has to wait until about, June 2026 at the latest. Yeah, so he has to wait until about June 2026. That's the latest he can do this. Of course, Newcastle would be entitled to compensation. FIFA's rules say the compensation would be calculated based on the damage suffered by Newcastle according to the positive interest principle. Right. Taking into account the individual facts and circumstances of each case. In practical terms... That was a lot of air quotes. Alright, in practical terms, that's a fancy way of saying that the Dispute Resolution Chamber of FIFA's Football Tribunal would take into account a combination of factors, such as the wages Isak would have earned in his final 2 seasons, around 12.5 million, his residual value on Newcastle's books, around 20 million, and the cost of signing his replacement, finger in the wind. Okay, so 12.5 million plus 20 million. So that's like at least 32.5 million then. About 32.5. All right. There's no fixed amount, but one sports lawyer I spoke to reckons it wouldn't be more than 50 to 60 million. I mean, that's still a lot. He explained that FIFA, following the Diarra judgment, don't want to be seen to be punitive towards restricting player freedom of movement. Makes sense. What was it? You just got sued. You don't want people to think you're doing the thing you got sued for. No. Newcastle, of course, would then be able to appeal the judgment to the Court of Arbitration of Sport and ask for more compensation. Either way, it's hard to see them getting near what they turned down from Liverpool. So yeah, what was it? If you didn't hear, Newcastle turned down a, let's see, where was it? $110 million for Isak from Liverpool. And now, what was it? If whatever this case goes through and it helps Isak get a move, they're saying they won't get any more than like 50 or 60 million. So it's like, yeah, that was they like halved what they could have gotten. Damn. What was it? Let's see. Yeah. And there's risk that they'll get less. Oh, wait, no. Either way, it's hard to see them getting near what they turned down from Liverpool. And there's the risk that they'll get less. Way less. FIFPro have sued the European courts. FIFPro have sued. The European courts are watching, and the direction of travel is entirely toward fewer restrictions, not more. Huh? There's another wrinkle in all this. The wheels of compensation tribunals grind slowly. A final judgment could take 18 months to 2 years. What the? Damn it, bug. But under FIFA's tweaked rules, the player would be free to play for his new club straight away, paying no transfer fee at all for 2 years. For someone like Isak, could well be worth the uncertainty of not knowing what the compensation will be if you sign him. So yeah, what was it? They're saying, like, obviously, whatever club he ends up going to is still going to have to compensate Liverpool, at least a little bit. But they're saying that, like, Isak is probably worth whatever compensation, since, whatever compensation they do have to pay out probably won't be that much, or at least won't be nearly as much as he's worth. So it's still a good deal, even with that. Let's see. Some disagree that it would be quite this straightforward. Alex Clark, a sports lawyer, points out that Premier League rules would still apply, and they would make this sort of unilateral termination very difficult. But that only opens up another can of legal worms, especially if Isak were to leave England for, say, Spain or Germany. So they're saying that, what was it? Premier League rules might get in the way of this, of him terminating his own contract. But if he leaves to Spain or Germany, that could throw a bit of a wrench into the works. It could, might affect things. Yeah. You wouldn't back the Premier League in a legal squabble with FIFA over an international transfer. The point here, in any event, is that the threat of Article 17 exists in the Isak case, and the threat alone, presumably, is what has emboldened the player and his agent to this point. From Newcastle's perspective, the threat of Article 17 only goes away if they transfer Isak to Liverpool, or another club, in the next 12 days, or if they get him to sign a new contract with a reasonable release clause. So yeah, what was it? He can't. So obviously he can't. Terminate his own contract if they sell him, which is still what he wants. Or they could get him to sign a new contract, which isn't what he wants. So I don't think that's gonna happen. Yeah. The former looks increasingly unlikely. Yep. The latter may seem fanciful given the current relationship, but it's potentially the only way out for both parties. Uh, Newcastle get their star center forward back, maybe spinning some prodigal son tale, and a pre-agreed minimum fee if he does want to leave next summer. It will likely be less than the Liverpool bid, but more than the Article 7 compensation, and, crucially, without the uncertainty. Plus, they would get their money straight away. Isak gets to actually play football for a season, a little more money, and the security of knowing he can move on for a more manageable fee. And that's the end of the article. Yeah, so basically what it is, thanks to this new ruling, thanks to this Lasana Diarra case, basically Isak can, essentially kind of terminate his own contract, and can essentially get a move to Liverpool or, somewhere else that way, but, Newcastle would still have to get some kind of compensation. It would just be way less than they could have gotten, which is 110 million. So, yeah, what was it? Yeah, Newcastle really aren't in a great situation with this. It's like, if this goes through, they're, losing no matter what. So, yeah, they're not in a great spot.